Welcome to the ROVE Tech Talk. Today's topic is Cloud's Got Your Back, how cloud can help your backups. And this is Brad Craig, Senior Solutions Architect here at ROVE. And just for note, this is the 5th installment of the Tech Talks. If you're interested in the first four, simply go to withrove.com and select the Media Library section, and you'll see the previous four listed there to enjoy. Any cloud discussion, I like to start with, a quick discussion about customers' journey to the cloud. And typically, you kind of get managed expectations, an easy button, and you hit this button, and it's magic, and you're in the cloud, and all the world's problems are solved. And from an engineering standpoint, this is typically the attitude we see when we go into IT shops. It's most people don't have plans. It's definitely a mixed bag of where we are in the cloud adoption journey. So I mean, where are we now? It's when we go out and talk to customers, we definitely see a wide array of progress. We see islands of test dev. It's a lot of times it's shadow IT. Sometimes IT knows about it. Sometimes they don't. Some companies are doing it well. But there's limited production workloads that we see in our customers out in the cloud. And kind of the most popular area that we see people adopting the cloud, at least to start with, is housing and archiving of unstructured data. And again, very few organizations have a defined plan how to get there. I mean, and it is a journey. It's not an easy button. And many of those people struggle to find the cloud on-ramp. So we talk about in that journey, where to start. It's definitely, as I said, you have to make a plan. It's incremental baby steps. And this session is not meant to be a deep dive into cloud enablement, but do know that we do have a cloud practice at ROVE to help customers create and execute that plan. So the cloud journey is not a big bang. It's a small incremental steps after considering many factors in your environment. Aside from test dev workloads, which are very popular in the cloud, data protection many times is the first kind of production class workloads we see it taken to the cloud. And the reason being it's relatively easy and cheap to implement, and it's fairly low risk. And once confidence in the public cloud is there, running that, it's more migrations can be planned. And we're talking about data protection in the cloud or using the cloud, and there's a lot of products out there. Many of the legacy products are very much retrofitted and have bolt-on features to support either cloud out or running in the cloud. And when we look at platforms, we look at products that we onboard and we position customers. We like to choose products that are built for the cloud, ones that enable it. It's not retrofitted for it. And Rubric is one of the vendors that we partner with to provide that solution. So kind of a quick history lesson. It's I've been on the customer side. I've been on the VAR side for some time as well, and I have the pleasure of administering ArcServe, Net Backup, Backup Exec, and I go back. My history goes back longer than I'd like to admit. But if you look back to the 90s, and 90s to present really, and nothing much has changed. You have backup software, you have servers, proxies, replication engines, and databases, and we backed up the tape, and we contracted with, say, Iron Mountain to come get our tapes and archive them for data protection. And in the 2000s, we did incrementally improve the products. We added dedupe engines. We started backing up to disk, and still we would tape out and archive off. So, and kind of the challenge with that has always been is to fully back up my environment and the retention, it took a lot of local backup storage. And if I would replicate the DR, it would take just as much. So as I said, this is problematic. It's hard to manage and expensive to own. Very few companies have a whole lot of confidence in their backup systems that if they wanted to recover, they could actually do it. So here's what we're proposing. Let's take out these legacy systems with all those components that are problematic and expensive to own and manage. Let's install a platform that will scale out, that is easy to use, that will cloud out transparently to the customer. If you take a step back, if you look at what the hyperconvergence movement is doing to the modern data center, Rubric is very much doing for data protection. Customers they're pushing back against the complexity of the modern data center, of how we've been doing it, and demanding much simpler products to own, install, and manage. So, let me build this out. So what is Rubrik? Rubrik converges backup software, replication, catalogs, and deduplicated storage into a single software fabric that can be easily deployed as plug-and-play appliances, software appliances, or in the cloud. It does not have that complex, bloated architecture of legacy data protection products, whether it's running on-prem or the cloud. Rubrik provides a single software platform to orchestrate application data from data center to the cloud, private or public. You can also instantly power on any application anywhere for recovery, search, cloud, and test dev. And since Rubrik is built on a scale-out architecture that allows users to continue to managing a single system and scale out easily with no forklift upgrades, expansion of this platform is simply adding Rubrik calls bricks. It doesn't add management points. And as far as archiving out, you can do it to public cloud, or many organizations, they don't use public cloud. So you can also use private cloud and several of these more popular commercial object-based storage. So let's talk about how it works. These units, these appliances, are very easy to install. It typically takes less than an hour, and when you install it and turn it on, you point it towards your environment, and it auto-discovers the virtual physical environments through APIs and intelligent connectors. And once it's discovered your environment, it uses Flash for backups. It minimizes performance impact to the production environment and results in very rapid backup windows and elimination in the stun effect that you see on some of the other platforms. VMware snapshots is a bad word. Rubrik makes it usable and does it very well. Once it's backed up, the data is indexed and efficiently stored in a single scale repository with the help of content-aware dedupe. And note that this is a first full incremental forever. It will ingest the full first, and in a VMware environment, you use change block tracking to do forever incrementals after that. As far as automation, once you set up your SLAs and your policies and apply it, it is an automated environment. You're not going to have to care and feed for this device every day like you do in many other environments. And instant recovery. With just a click, you can instantly recover a VM or SQL database by booting the VM or the SQL file directly from the Rubrik system. You're not traditionally, in traditional environments, you would do a block by block transfer to the production, and it might take hours depending on the size of the recovery. But with this, you basically boot it up, and no additional storage provision is required. For instance, for VMware, Rubrik comes to NFS data store from a VMware perspective. And for Hyper-V and SQL, Rubrik serves as a remote data store and exposes the VM and SQL files via SMB. And it delivers a point-in-time recovery. Application and server files can also be quickly located via Google-like search and stored to any location. And it's secure. It's end-to-end encryption. It's in transit and at rest, data at rest encryption. And note that the snapshots are immutable. In the news in the past few months, the ransomware problem is getting huge. Instead of having to pay that ransom, this gives you yet another tool to recover your environment to. So, in cloud, this is kind of the focus of what we're talking about is, if you integrate cloud into your backup environment, you basically send dedupe data to that public cloud for long-term retention and while having instant access to it via Google-like search. And all the data, no matter where it resides, it is globally indexed and accessible through the search on the Rubrik platform. So if you think kind of a use case for this is, most of the times in the past, we have maintained all the data locally, and that takes a huge amount of storage to do so. So in this scenario, you set up an SLA to maybe keep 2 to 4 weeks, whatever your policy indicates, keep those backups local, and send the older to long-term archives in the public cloud. To meet that compliance need. What this does is it minimizes that on-prem footprint and investment and keeps your data, your backup solution footprint very small. Maybe a simple single 2U brick will serve what you need. So we've talked about a primary data center and cloud out to this point, and what you can also do with Rubrik is you can install another unit in a DR center. and replicate your backup sets to that, and still use public cloud for long term. And the beauty of that is, as I said, with the instant recovery in a DR scenario, you can boot up those VMs in a DR situation right from that Rubric appliance. And if you were to have storage at that location, you can quickly bring those up and vMotion off to that local storage and be back up and running. So where can you run Rubric? You can run it anywhere from the data center to the cloud. You can run it on-prem, you can run it in DR via an appliance. You can run it as an EC2 instance in Amazon if you want to protect your cloud-native applications. And again, you can also use an Azure instance to do the same thing. And kind of the beauty of this is that you can replicate from on-prem to the cloud and reverse. And it's, anybody that's done any work in the cloud, vendor lock-in is a huge problem. What you can do is you can back up your instances in EC2 or Azure, and you can cross-replicate to have your data in both locations. So it helps you eliminate that vendor lock-in between cloud and gives you some level of portability. With version 4 of Rubric, this is a really cool thing, kind of a next step that nobody else is doing. Archiving out to the cloud is one thing. You've got your data there. It protects you from a traditional standpoint. But once those backup sets are there, what can you do with them? So with 4.0, what they've enabled is, and this is just AWS right now, and they're going to extend that to Azure and other vendors as well. But once it's in that cloud storage, you can tell Rubric to cloud instantiate that. And when you tell it to do that, it will spin up a Rubric node, a temporary Rubric node in AWS, and it will convert those VMs and suggest a cloud instance based on storage, memory, processors, and suggest the proper instance for that, and convert it and bring it up for either DR or test dev. I mean, there are some caveats around it right now. It is a first release, but they quickly plan on expanding some of this functionality and kind of use cases for that. So kind of the difference with Rubric, it truly is end-to-end data management. You don't have a management point for your local backups and another management point to manage the archive. It truly converges and collapses the bloated legacy architecture into one platform, and it scales linearly, and it is very much, whether it's cloud or on-prem, it's very much transparent, and no backup software is needed. It's set and forget, and again, it's in my days, being a backup admin or having that as part of my job role, I mean, I've spent probably 2 hours a day just managing backups and tracking down failed jobs. Once you ingest and set these policies, it pretty much runs itself. You don't get bogged down with the complex tuning of a traditional system. And I mentioned this before, it's cloud native design. This product was built for the cloud and built to use the cloud. It's not a bolt-on. It's not it's not an add-on. It's very easy. So this graphic kind of gives kind of a one-pager of the product. Up on the top left, it's what platforms is supported. Windows servers, Linux servers. It'll do NAS protection with Pure Storage, and they plan on expanding that to other vendors as well. They started out supporting VMware, and recently they've announced support for Hyper-V and Nutanix, backup Oracle databases, SQL databases, and of course, as I mentioned before, they partner with Azure and Amazon for that cloud layer. As far as where you install this thing, I've mentioned a little bit about this, but I'll go into a little more detail now. This can be installed on-premise in primary DR as an appliance. It can be run in the public and private clouds. You can, another use case that I haven't talked about is ROVE. If you have, however many remote sites that have local compute storage, you can set this up in the remote sites, either a physical or a virtual instance, and you can fan in and replicate into a central location or cloud to protect that data. And more recently, Rubric has had customers say, I understand, I like your product, but I don't want to use the appliances. So they have partnered with Cisco and developed, I believe it's 4 different reference architectures to bring your own hardware, bring your own UCS, and it makes it a very flexible platform. And on the top right, you see some of the use cases, and that's self-explanatory. I won't dig into that too much. So, and by the way, Rubric uses an API-first platform. It's REST API, and everything you see in Rubric's management interface, their GUI, uses that API. They use their own, eat their own dog food, if you will. And kind of what that enables, if you've got any of the more popular automation platforms such as Ansible, Chef, Puppet, Salt, or ServiceNow, it allows you to build those workflows, automation workflows, into that platform. Very powerful, and this is better than any other products I've seen out there. So, and again, this is going to be quick. I want to keep it quick to give time for questions. But in summary, this is a simple, scalable platform that seamlessly integrates on-prem and cloud. It's built for cloud. There's no bolt-on features or modules, no retrofits. And from a TCO standpoint, this is huge. It's reduced footprint, far reduced footprint in the data center, to reduce cooling and power. Far less administrative load. And as I said, if you're putting long-term storage, out on the cloud and low-cost storage, the Amazon and AWS, blob storage is very cheap right now. And if you're keeping your long-term storage out there and your short-term locally, you're really very rarely accessing that data, which, and honestly, that's where the cost is on a lot of those platforms. So, if you have a legacy environment and you're rotating backup tapes, you're having to add space every year to accommodate for your backup sets. Or worse, having to change backup retention. And I see this a lot, is you can't get budget to expand your environment, so you just slowly edge down your retentions, just to stay under the wire. And kind of to alleviate that, adding in a cloud layer using Rubric solves a lot of those problems. So, next steps. Contact your ROVE account rep for a deep dive and demo. If you don't have a rep yet, email us at info@withrove.com, or you can even contact me at brad.craig@withrove.com, or at Twitter at bradcraig_F3. So, and that's all I've got. If there are any questions, do we have a backup assessment offering? Yes, we do. We can come in and crawl over your backup platform, and we can look at your environment and kind of evaluate where your problems are, and we can evaluate what you need and how cloud can play a part in your backup strategy. That's all we've got. So I'll bring that contact page back up. Thank you for your time, and if any assistance needed, by all means, contact us, and thank you for your time.